Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Richard Lewis Show. I'm Richard Lewis, and joining me this time is one of Counter-Strike's great current in-game leaders, recently joined Fnatic. You know him. It is, of course, Alex. Alex, thanks very much for joining me, and congratulations on the Fnatic move. How do I find you this fine day?
Fine, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to come onto your show and speak with you.
Oh, listen, mate, you're doing me the favor. Let's be real about it. It's a time when I feel we're in a weird place with CS content. I think we've got a lot of good long-form content that doesn't get seen, but still I haven't seen a lot of like interviews. I kind of feel like interviews are almost like structured, like long interviews. They're almost like structured around leagues now. And so we've just had the player break. I mean, that's still technically going on before ESL Pro League. And there's been a ton of shit happening. And I haven't seen it. I haven't seen any players talking about it so much outside of tweets, which we all know are a nightmare. So yeah, thank you so much for being here, because we got some crazy topics to cover, and I'm sure people are gonna want to know a bit more about. So look, I'm gonna start with the broad one. You're an in-game leader, right? Why would you do that to yourself? What is it about in-game leadership that you've identified? Yep, this is for me. I can do this. And the reason I frame it that way is because down the years, I've known a lot of in-game leaders, been very close with some of them. And it feels like there's almost a parental aspect to the job, especially when you're bringing in younger players. It's a lot of hassle, a lot of stress. You do an additional component of work, and then you get absolutely brutalized by the community if you're not dropping 30 frags every game. So it's a bit of a crazy world.
Yeah, well, originally I was kind of the star player on LDLC back in the day with Existence and Maniac. And then it just got to a point where we weren't getting anywhere. And like the top two CS French teams at the time were Titan or G2 and Envy, and they were just like recycling players amongst themselves. So it got to a point where we tried Existence, we had to kick him. We tried Devil, that didn't work out. And then it just naturally came like, okay, I'll do it. I'll try it out at least and try and get us just as good or even better than them, essentially, is what happened. And it just turned out that I was pretty good at it. We had good results, and it kind of started there. And then I think you're right in the parental side of things. I think I enjoy not putting players through what I went through, let's put it that way, with some of the old school in-game leaders, I guess. And therefore making it maybe a nicer environment for them to flourish and grow in. And I think just naturally because I work hard and I like to win. I think that's like the main drive is I want to win everything. And if I have to be in-game leader and watch 10 demos and do whatever I need to do to win, then I'll do it, basically.
How much of the in-game leadership role did you take from Existence? Because I'm always curious to this, because when you see players that aren't IGLs become IGLs and they've played alongside great IGLs, there's always this assumption that, you know, it's almost like a Carrigan God B kind of story, that, you know, there was a tutoring element to it. But sometimes that isn't the case at all. Sometimes there's by the time the decision has been made to transition into being an IGL, that the other in-game leader you would like to have learned from is, you know, fucked off, been replaced, or, you know, whatever it is. So did you ever sort of seek out his advice? Because he's very widely regarded as one of the best.
I wouldn't say I sought out his advice like after we'd finished playing together, but I definitely learned quite a bit being around him. A lot of what's good, some of what's not good, and just took it from there, really. I think I was lucky enough to be kind of brought up by quite a few good in-game leaders, because I had Ozstriker, the 1.6. I was in a team with him, and then he was coaching me in LDLC. So I've kind of had like really good IGLs like throughout my career and kind of learned a bit from all of them. I think the best thing I learned from Existence was work hard, because he was incredibly hardworking. We didn't always agree on how to approach the game, but he would always work hard. Everything that he did had a reason for it, and that's kind of what I kept from him, I think, mostly.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I knew him very well from the Source days, and he was he was insane. He was one of the first in-game leaders I ever saw that turned up to an event, and between matches, because obviously back then you played till you dropped. You played like 5 or 6 series a day. But he was the first guy I ever saw whip out an iPad between matches and be like zooming in on video footage and reading notes and showing people in a circle around him, you're doing this at this moment and stuff. I always thought he was massively ahead of where in-game leadership was at the time. And I also feel like he was almost like a coach in an in-game leader rolled into one, frankly.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Honestly, I think he had lots of good things even towards the end when maybe his in-game approach wasn't good. There was still a lot you could learn from him as a player and as a person, I guess, with like the drive he had to, despite not having good results for years, he was always like working as hard as he could to try and get back to that top level that he had been at before. Yeah, Kevin's special in that way, I think. Yeah, really. Even now, I think in Valorant, when he hadn't played probably at the top of CS for like 5 years, he still probably works maybe even harder than he did in CS because he really wants to get back to the top. Unfortunately for him, I think he's injured right now. So
yeah,
wish him a speedy recovery. Yeah.
He's had just kind of no luck. But I guess, look, at the end of the day, he definitely had a glittering career in Source. So I mean, he can't. Maybe he shouldn't have used all his luck up then and should have saved some for later on down the home stretch. But, that's just life, I guess. Look, so LDLC, when you were there, you did turn a big corner when you took over as IGL. I mean, I've talked about this before on By the Numbers, because as we're going to get into, you seem to be a bit of a polarizing figure when it comes to assessing your leadership legacy. But LDLC went on a very clear upward trajectory after you took over and started performing very well. And this is obviously what facilitates your move to Vitality, which we'll talk about in a second. But what do you think you were doing differently that was working in that LDLC lineup that wasn't happening before you were the leader?
First of all, I think we had better players, honestly. I'm not gonna lie. We got Amanek and Divajivek in at that time, who had just come out of Misfits where they were doing pretty well. No disrespect to my former teammates who were all really good, but they were just maybe in a more confident position than the players we had who had been kind of struggling for a few years by then. And I think the way we set out the team was like, we went up gradually. So we won like the local French tournament, like the ECN, which is the French national championship, basically. I think we won it without dropping a map or something. And then we went on to like smaller LAN in France, which we won. And then we just went from like step by step of just winning at kind of like Gambit, I feel like, who were kind of in the shadows for like a lot longer than us, but we're winning like tournament after tournament. And then you just get that confidence that you can win. And then it doesn't really matter who you play against. You feel like you can win any game. Whereas in LDLC, we're in Pro League like before I took over, but it was like we were constantly losing, and then it becomes harder and harder to win. I feel like when you just keep losing. So I think that was the main difference. And then maybe the style we played was a more modern style to what had been previously been used in LDLC.
What do you mean when you say modern style? I think I know what you mean, but I think this is interesting as well because people don't seem to understand the game has gone through evolutions and phases where styles and approaches were very different. So when you say a modern style, what does that mean to you?
To me, in regards to the French scene, we kind of had like a 4-1 Envy style, which was very skill-based with amazing talent on show. And then we had the Existence style, which is very structured. Everything was calculated. And you just had kind of what I'd say like a more of an MSL style where everything's planned from the start to the finish. And I kind of made a hybrid of that, I guess, where we could have very methodical rounds. We could have 4-1 rushes, like we would just mix everything up. And I think that's kind of the hybrid that was needed to get the French, because players were coming from both schools, I guess, back then. And mixing teams, but trying to mix styles didn't necessarily work. So we kind of had a mixture of players who came from both styles, and yeah, it just worked, I guess. I wouldn't say that I theorized it for years and it worked out, but it just kind of lucked out on that one, really.
Yeah. So, like you say, things are going well in LDLC. Maybe a slight plateauing, and then you end up getting the move across to Vitality. Obviously, don't think it's too insulting to say, a superior team with some legends and veterans at the time you joined. So let's talk about that. I mean, first of all, how does that move come about? Because it's kind of interesting. The one thing I would say is the French scene is very incestuous in the way that it recycles talent. You've already alluded to that. It's super rare, that especially at that time, that you would see sort of a new name thrown in the mix. It's almost why LDLC kind of existed. It was like the halfway house for all the people that couldn't break into the big two. But you seem to be pretty accepted going in. And, that in retrospect, I think that surprises me, because I think there was still a feeling among a lot of those players that if we can just get the right five, French CS can be back and we could be the world number one. It was just because of politics and divisions and personalities that five never occurred. And now you're seeing how they've had the great crisis, they're having to kind of very quickly cycle new talent through. So how did you get into Vitality, and why was it that those French veteran players were so readily accepting of you, given that in terms of reputation, especially among the French, you maybe didn't have that same level of standing?
I think the big change was them recruiting xtqzz, the coach, and Vitality giving him the power to control the team. He's not from that group of players, essentially. He's not from that. Well, he's from that time, but he wasn't part of that group. And he was actually commentating at the time on the French streams. And he kind of, when he joined as a coach, he came in and wanted to modernize it as well. Like, we couldn't keep going through the same players all the time. And I've known him for years because he coached me way back in 2016, I think it was, 15 maybe. And I've known Apex for years as well. So I think that kind of, those were like two of the big personalities within the team, and that made life easy for me coming in, because I think the only other big personality was McMeekin in there. And when two of the three are fine with you coming in, then it makes life easier for sure. So I think that, and also I must say, when I joined, McMeekin was very welcoming, and he said, like, just do what you need to do, like, if you need any help, just ask and stuff. Like, he was also very welcoming. So it was easy to fit in, really.
Yeah, which is a good thing to point out, because I think there's a perception that McMeekin is like a hostile entity when it comes to being an in-game leader, which isn't true at all. It's only when, if it ever gets to a point he thinks he can do a better job than you, he will say that. But he will give you a chance, I think. And I always thought he was a great teammate by and large. It's just when things break down, he seems to be the kind of guy that's more vocal about that, So just on the xtqzz issue, tell me a bit more about that. Vitality giving him the rights to control the team, because I think, again, there's a lot of misconceptions about what coaches can and can't do. And in most teams, and I've said this before as well, but I'll repeat it, in most teams, they are essentially analysts and water boys. They don't actually do any coaching. They go to an event, they prepare a demo, they say, hey, do you want to use these notes? The in-game lead is really calling all the shots about strats, about playtime, about scrims, how practices operate. And especially now with the new Valve rules, coaches don't really do a whole lot of much, especially when events come rolling around. There have been some notable exceptions, and I think that should tell you all you need to know. One of them is obviously Astralis, Zonic, the greatest to ever do it. And then hot on his heels, reputationally, is xtqzz. So when you say he has complete control, explain that.
I mean, obviously, there's a financial limit to complete control. Like, it has to make sense for Vitality. But in terms of essentially in that team, at least when I was in it, we all kind of agreed that without him, the team wouldn't work, essentially. And therefore, when you kind of accept that and agree to that, then you kind of understand why he's in charge, and why he gets to make the decisions. I think obviously I haven't worked with Sonic and I love Danny, but for me he's like the best coach there is. He will do anything that you need outside of the server, like as a friend. He always knows like what you need to fix, what you need to work on. Always has the perfect call if he takes a tactical timeout. Like everything he does is just, maybe not perfect, but everything that he says is right, and you can trust that he knows what he's talking about. And he works harder than most of the players that we had, at least at the time. Honestly, he's like the best I've ever seen. And therefore, as I said, like once you understand the fact that he is the most important person almost within that team, within the whole like the team culture and everything around it, I think he's definitely one of those exceptions.
Has there ever been a moment where you guys have like had a very strong disagreement over how to do something, and if that has happened, how do you resolve it? Because you're the leader, he's the coach, both got your respective levels of control and influence. So who kind of wins in a stare down?
He wins every time, and even if you disagree with him, you'll agree with him by the end once he explains it to you. Like, we obviously have differences of opinion on some things, but at the end of the day, we all accepted that he's in charge and he's head coach, and what he wants in the end, if we don't agree, he's in charge. So we just do what he wants, and he's not the type of person that's like, oh, we'll do it my way and that's it. If we do it his way and he realizes that it's not working, then he has no problem like switching or listening to someone else. He's very open. But as I said, like usually when he says something, he's right. So you don't really get to that point anyway.
Yeah. So the other big thing, and you're going to see how I'm going to segue here. You're going to see the cogs turning. The other big thing about your time in Vitality is obviously you got to kind of play alongside a player that many people regard as, at times the best player in the world, at other times the second best player in the world, and that is the young talent of Zywoo. So tell me a little bit about him and about how you utilize someone like that as an in-game leader, because obviously he's a star. You have to sort of keep him happy, but also as well, you have to do what's best for the team. It can't all be about this prodigious talent.
Yeah, Zywoo is... you wouldn't even know that he's got the attitude of a support player. Like, he doesn't care. If you want him to run in first, he'll run in first. If you want him to sit back and throw flashes, he'll do that. But he is, if not the best, like obviously at the moment Simple's out of this world, so it's hard to say that he's better than Simple right now. But yeah, he is honestly the most aware, the most precise player I've ever played with. I think I ever will, because I doubt I'll ever play with Simple. Honestly, he's amazing. It's quite funny because I heard you and Doran talk about Zywoo sometimes. Oh, no one knows what this kid's like. He could be not a nice person and stuff. Like, honestly, he's the nicest person you'll ever meet. Like, never.
Yeah, I believe it too, because it comes across. You can get a little bit of insight with interviews and stuff. He doesn't seem to have an ego yet. I can't believe it's never gonna come though. At some point, he's gonna.
He lives at home with his mum and his two brothers, and every morning goes out to his chickens to get some eggs for breakfast. He's just one of those chilled out people. Doesn't go on social media. Doesn't
Very good idea.
Read anything anywhere. Doesn't care. He enjoys playing CS, and he he would rather, like, I think most people would say this, but I actually believe this is true. He would rather trade all of his MVPs for any tournament win. And he really cares about winning as a team instead of him performing as an individual. If he can get individual trophies, then sure, he's happy, but that's not what he cares about. And I think that's maybe why he doesn't have an ego as well, because he just cares about the team winning more than himself. That's why you'll see him running out first out of BAPS on Mirage, which no other player in the world wants to do, except for maybe Rush on Complexity, but that's about it.
Yeah, so here's a question for you. And I don't know if you can answer this, because this might have been after your time. I didn't actually prepare this bit, so I'm going off my own script. But obviously, I do remember quite famously, it was Apex that came out in an interview and said, listen, Zywoo's good and everything, but you have to understand, we set him up for that. You know, we throw the flashes.
Well, that was me. It was me.
Oh, was that you said that?
Yeah,
right.
Me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Good. So that statement, as I'm sure you know, because I always see you lurking in the By the Numbers chat. Obviously, me and Thor had riffed on that quite a bit, right? Because I thought that was almost like, it felt to me that statement was almost like a fucking hell. Zywoo's getting all the credit here, and it is a team effort. And it was like an attempt to sort of like say, look, we do all this work here and we want CS purists to appreciate that. But I think the way it kind of came across was almost like, you know, everyone says it's Zywoo plus 4 bots. And I don't like that. You know, I don't want that to be said about me. So I actually thought it was Apex. So brilliant.
It wasn't necessarily about me. It was more about my teammates.
Right.
Like, I don't care about what people say about me. That's fine. Like, but I know what players like RPK sacrifice to make the team work. And honestly, just after a while, it just gets annoying. You know, like, I feel like the team, as I said, I don't care about myself, but I felt like the team should be appreciated for, like, not only sacrificing themselves, but what we did for, just what we did as a team. Like, we were a team. We weren't wasn't Zywoo plus 4 bots or whatever was said. It was like, honestly, we spent so much time building this team and making a system and everything that went with it, and it just, after a while, it was almost pathetic. Like, it's just like, just because this is what, like, whenever we played Na'Vi, this is what always got me, was this. Whenever we played Na'Vi, everyone said, oh, well, they've got Simple and Electronic, we have Zywoo, so obviously they should beat us, right? But we beat them every time.
Yeah.
So surely that says something about the team element. But no. Just Zywoo carrying us all. Like, come on.
You can't expect the peanut gallery to be consistent, right? Because they never are. There's no logical throughfare to their thoughts. There's just lazy narratives a lot of the time. And I'm as guilty of falling into those lazy narratives because, you know, obviously, even though I work in the industry, when it comes to sitting down on a weekend to watch the games, I essentially morph into a fan. You know, I don't always have the level of insight or game knowledge required to fully appreciate everything that's going on. Sometimes, you know, players will hit me up during a tournament and let me know the skinny about what's going on here. And sometimes I'll watch it with people who know what the fuck they're talking about. And they'll tell me like, oh, they've changed this and this and this. And, you know, we scrimmed against them and, you know, things like this. So I'm lucky in that regard. But even I fall for like lazy narratives. I've probably said the exact same thing at some point, to be honest with you, mate. I've probably said, yeah, Zywoo's carrying that team and they need to, you know, make a change.
At some point, it probably was true. Like, some games, he probably did save us. But I think that's the point of star players anyway. But like, that's the same in every team. Of course, everything was kind of more centered around Zywoo and our team. But I think that's kind of what you can do with such a talent. Honestly, it's like the benefit you have of having him, and it's funny because people were saying like for us it's like Zywoo's carrying us and we're winning trophies, and then it was our Simple's carrying Na'Vi but they're not winning trophies, you know. And it was kind of the difference of I just never understood why no one kind of went for the oh yeah, but obviously there's something there, you know, like why are we winning trophies and they're not, especially when you add Electronic in the mix, you know. But it is what it is, and obviously I think at that point I was kind of annoyed. I can't remember when I said it, to be honest, but
yeah,
it
like
was,
you say, it wasn't something I was going to get into because I thought it was Apex that
yeah,
said it. And, you know, Apex, Alex, I'm a boomer. You know how it goes. Like, but I mean, look, I can obviously understand that frustration. I'm sure. I'm sure there's some sort of pressure actually. Yeah, let's use Navi as an example. I'm sure there's a little bit of pressure on Simple to come out. You know, when he does those interviews and he's dropped like 120 kills in a 3-map series, and Navi have still lost like 19-17 on the last map, and they bring Simple out, right? Well, you've won the MVP award for the whole tournament, and Simple, you know, are you a bit disappointed to lose? And he'll say, "Yeah, I should have done more." You know, I should have.
yeah.
And it's like, motherfucker, you lying. You couldn't have physically done any more. It's definitely your teammates that'll let you down. And yeah, I think there's a pressure there because if you say, yeah, you know, Edward was shit this tournament, you know, or someone should have helped me out, then obviously it's going to create team friction, isn't it? And so you have to kind of be that lightning rod and sort of acknowledge that it is a team game.
I think that's where we see life has moved on a bit, because I would never imagine a Roy Keane putting up those stats and coming out and saying, "Oh, I could have done more." He'd have been right at the throats of everyone else.
Of course, man.
So no, yeah, I think Simple's been like good in that sense. Like honestly, if I think many other players in that situation would have like lost it after a while. But yeah, it's not much to say really about it, because it's just Simple's amazing, Zywoo's amazing, and I think you can use them in a different way to most other players, honestly.
So when things were going well in Vitality, obviously, I think under your leadership, did you get to the #1 team in the world, or did you stop at second in the world?
No, we got slapped by Liquid every tournament.
Yeah, that's
what
I thought. Yeah. So, but I mean, still #2 in the world, winning trophies, having a good rivalry with that Team Liquid side, who, you know, like you say, were widely regarded as the best. That was when they were on a tear in 2019. When did the wheels start coming off, and why was it that you were viewed to be part of the problem? You know, I'm a little bit sort of confused about, you know, how you as a leader take this team, because again, much like LDLC, wasn't a huge improvement, but we're talking, I mean, you couldn't have had a huge improvement. You were already in the top 10 teams in the world. You took them up to #2. So I'm just curious as to like what starts breaking down and how people maybe start losing confidence in you and are thinking about a change of leadership.
Well, when I joined, they were, I think, 23rd in the world or something. So we did make quite a leap. I don't think, I mean, obviously we have to ask the team about that, but I don't think there was ever a point where they lost complete faith in me as a leader, honestly. Because there was never a question of kicking me. I left by myself, so it was. I don't think there was ever a time where things got dicey in that way. I think where everything started going downhill, honestly, was when we had to remove MBK, basically. I think that team we had, role-wise, was absolutely perfect. Like, we had everything set out perfectly. We had our aggressive lurker, our passive lurker. We had 4 people that were running to entry frag. Like, everything was perfect for the style that we were playing. And when we brought Shox in, that's where it kind of went downhill. And this is also why I feel like after I left, Vitality got better as well, because we had role clashes. Essentially, we had Shox, myself, and Apex, who all kind of played similar roles, like all playing rotations on CT. We had Apex and myself that liked to entry and lurk, but then we now had Shox, who was a hard lurker, so we couldn't lurk anymore. It was just like the whole role system was kind of mucked up in that messed up, sorry, in that new team that we had. And I feel like, yeah. So once I left, obviously, it became easier because those roles were now sorted. They had Shox and Apex on those 2 rotations. They brought in an anchor, and that was basically sorted after I left. And I feel like that plus Apex being, I think, a good in-game leader. Obviously, I haven't played with him as an in-game leader, but I know Apex definitely helped them get better. But yeah, I think when it went downhill was really when we got Shox in, basically. Not due to his fault alone.
Just a
Let's put it
blend.
that way.
Yeah, just a
I think
blend of players.
the blend of players, essentially didn't work, basically.
Well, I'm glad we got there, because this is the big one. This is the most adversarial this podcast is going to get, right? So buckle up. But after this, it's all plain sailing. We're gonna float down to Cloud9 Island and talk about that, right? But here's the thing, because again, I don't like, I don't really like being duplicitous or two-faced, so I'm always straight with people. When you released that statement announcing that you'd left, and I think you said something along the lines of you were burnt out a little bit. You didn't use the exact phrase burned out, but you said you were burnt out a little bit, that you were no longer interested in the rigors of being a professional Counter-Strike player. All of the travel had taken its toll, and you just wanted some time out to essentially reassess where you were going in life. Now, I looked at that statement and thought it was bullshit. And I'll explain why. Because obviously, first of all, I know enough about French teams to know no one ever goes out of a French team without some form of fucking collusion or secret meeting, or, someone gets in a room with somebody else and like, what shall we do about this guy? And it's like, that's how it goes down generally. And then you just turn up one day and your replacement's already got your slippers on and you're fucked. But then the other thing is the idea that you, right, who's grinded, to get into a top tier team, taking a team to number 2 in the world. We just got free and clear of what was the most packed schedule I think I've ever seen in the history of CSGO. That was over now. And it was then
supposedly over.
Well, yeah, I mean, now, online CS, who fucking knows? But back then, there was that unbelievable, 45-day period where it was just nonstop. But you got free and clear of that. And then that was when you said, I don't want to do this anymore. So, hand to God, right?
I swear down. Honestly, basically what happened was in July of 2019. So I think it was during Cologne, we'd played 18 maps basically to get to the final, I think. And I said to our coach back then, I said, if it's going to be this next year, I just can't do it. And so we had agreed we would, I think it was the same for everyone, was super tired and everything. And we agreed that we would try and cut down, because we traveled 36 weeks that year. Plus we had MDL online. So we were essentially playing even when we were home, we were still playing officials. So it was we'd never had any downtime. And I said to him in July that I couldn't do it if it was the same next year. And then basically came the Louvre agreement, came Blast, and when we discussed it in the original drafts that we got, we were allowed to skip tournaments. And I think, I'm not sure if they weren't aware of each other, or as soon as ESL heard about Blast, or the other way around, they just cut it down to 1.5 events every year. So basically 3 events over 2 years, which then made our schedule impossible. In terms of what we had planned to do in terms of travel, competitions, our rest time. And we went to Blast. Blast in January or February. Yeah. And I'd spent my whole player break basically sleeping about 10 to 12 hours every day, resting up, essentially trying to get back fit for the next season. And came along early January, and I was still tired. I think we went for a 2-week boot camp, and I just went to finish practice at 7, went to the hotel at 8, and I was tired until the next day basically. And then obviously the results weren't going too well then, because we had the role problem, as I said before, with Shox, Apex, myself. And then it came to Katowice, and on the travel day, I essentially got to the airport and just started crying, and I just like didn't know why I was doing it anymore. And that's really what made my mind up. It was like, I need to take some time off, because when you get to the point that you're crying at the airport because you don't know what you're doing anymore, you just like have to stop, essentially.
So what was it that was like taking this psychological toll on you? Because it seems to me, and look, I know obviously everyone looks at what we do and goes, that's the dream. You got some guy who like works in a real retail job, and they look at what we do and they go, how the fuck can you ever complain? And there's an element of truth in that, but obviously they only see the bit we allow them to see. They don't see all the stuff that goes on, outside of the monitor, essentially. So what was happening to you? Why does it get to a point where you're breaking down at an airport? What was wearing you down?
First of all, the travel. I think obviously people see us play for 3 or 4 hours a day at events, but you have to think that if we have a game at, say, 3 o'clock, where especially IGLs, we're up at like 9 preparing for that game. In Vitality, obviously, we had a kind of a strict regime where we would go to the gym in the morning. We had to have breakfast. We had to do we had set times for everything. And I think it was beneficial, but in the long, it was also very tiring. And then you would play your game at 3 p.m. Maybe you finish at 7 if you're lucky, maybe 8. And then you have to prepare for the next day. And so you're up till 1, 2 in the morning, and then you're preparing the next morning again at 9. And then you have team meetings. And then we had a lot of staff involved. Obviously the crew that everyone saw online that you guys like to talk about. I'm not sure that was actually them though. But we had a lot of staff members, and it wasn't going too well for me with them, to be quite honest. And they shortly removed them after I left for pretty much the same reason, I think. So, so yeah, everything was kind of draining me. And I just wanted to be home and actually feel rested and feel like I could perform at my best, I guess. I think the whole thing was an amazing experience, and like playing at the top every week and traveling. Obviously, it sounds like a dream, but I think you have to experience it to actually know what it feels like to be in that kind of a situation, to be honest. And that's why I have huge respect for like the Aussies and everyone that's moved like across continents to be a part of a team. And yeah, unfortunately that's not for me to like go across continents, but like being at home more is all I really needed, to be honest.
So was there like an element in your mind then when you put that statement out that you were, it was essentially retirement?
No, I don't ever. I kind of saw this come up quite a bit, and I thought I must have misworded something. But yeah, it was never in my mind to retire. I had like some conversations about potentially becoming like coach, or I don't know, working in the offices as like possibilities, but I don't think I ever truly believed it. I think I was still in that kind of state where I was just like tired. When I stopped, I didn't play CS for like 3 months. I just didn't go anywhere near it. Obviously, we were in lockdown, so had to be on the PC. But yeah, I didn't go anywhere near CS, and the lovely competitor came out, so I was on that for a bit. And I think after playing that for a while, I was just like, well, CS was fun, and yeah, and so essentially I just got back into CS more and more. I was watching the games, and as I said at the time, I was looking for a team that allowed me to travel less, which Cloud9 was.
Well, in that case, I will proffer an apology for ever doubting you. But pundits, we do talk shit on occasions. It's all
good. I was going to say as well, I forgot the part about the French, how they always have a meeting before that you're not involved in.
Every day is a fucking red wedding if you're in a French team, mate. Like, I'm just saying.
Yeah, all I say is that stopped as well with xtqzz coming in. That's like it's a definite no-go. anyway. Even if you make a decision, if he doesn't agree, then it's not going to happen. So there's no point really. I remember a time, I won't say any names, but someone within the team wanted to remove RPK, and it was just like it wasn't even a discussion because xtqzz wasn't gonna let it happen. So
yeah,
that all stopped when xtqzz came in, to be honest.
So, look, you can probably predict what the next question's going to be then. You have all that. You have some time off, right? I think it was about 6 months. You know, you're having a de-stress, you're a decompress, you're playing a bit of Valorant, you're trying to find fun again in your life. And then the opportunity to join Cloud9, what must have been the most stressful. Like, if you'd said to me, right, oh yeah, this guy's took some time off because he's really stressed and burned out. We've got a project for him. We think it's going to be nice and easy. Oh yeah, what's that? He's going to play in a complete rebuild of Cloud9 in what is the most like biggest spotlight imaginable, because they've got a highly prominent general manager as well that's talking up a storm. So why the fuck did you do that to yourself?
Honestly, I didn't. Whilst I was going through it, I didn't see it as stressful until the latter stages of the team, to be perfectly honest. It was honestly pretty simple. Like, I had been speaking to xtqzz before even like talking about Cloud9 or anything like that. We'd had a few talks, and I honestly, it came out of the blue because I just messaged Henry to wish him happy birthday, basically, and just asked him like what he'd planned next. He said, "Oh, I'm going to be GM of C9." And I said, "Oh, looking to join a team." And that's basically how it happened, to be perfectly honest.
Right.
So there's no stress involved in that. And I personally, do I regret the whole salary announcement things? Maybe a little bit, but I feel like it's definitely a step that should be taken, even despite the shit it caused for us.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's one of those things. Like, what's good for the industry isn't necessarily good for the team and good for the players. And it's like, what do you prioritize? It's like someone has to go first. And I personally commend Henry and Cloud9 for taking the approach they did. But yeah, I mean, it created a new type of pressure, because it's one thing for a player to say, "Oh, you're representing Cloud9 and your shit." It's another thing for them to say, "You're being paid, 42 grand a month. Fuck you." It's a bit more personal, right?
It's definitely more personal. I think the main issue with it all was Henry was too good at his job, to be perfectly honest. He had everyone on Twitter going off about everything we ever did. So like, he was doing a good job of hyping things up, to be perfectly honest. You can't get hyped about it and then complain about how Henry did a shit job. Like, he did his job. Everyone was watching us. And obviously it created pressure for us. But for him, his job as a manager, or as a general manager, getting interest in our team, like, yeah, he did his job. What can I say?
But would you have rather that pressure wasn't there? Would that have made it easier for you and the team if that pressure wasn't there?
Probably, honestly, probably. Would we have got the pressure anyway, though? Probably, because as you said, we were representing Cloud9, and that's not a small team. It's a major winning team. So people would put pressure on us for any reason, to be honest. So it might as well be about a good reason for me personally, But yeah, I think it would have been easier, but I feel like as well, nothing good comes easily. And I feel like, as we said earlier, for the scene, I think it is good that we get these sort of numbers out there. And like, obviously, I had to be first to leave for kind of mental health reasons. I had to be first to get the salaries out. So if I have to do things first, I have no problem doing it.
Yeah, it's so bizarre. I really feel like the community reaction to this team was so bizarre, because it looked like a culmination of all of the things they say they want happening. People wanted Cloud9 to have an ambitious project. The Cloud9 fans said they weren't particularly happy with the South African iteration. Remember, they went to Katowice and came dead last. And that's not good enough for Cloud9. The fans wanted a change. They got it. High-profile names. I mean, at the time when it was announced, obviously you've got, right, you, former number 2 team in the world IGL, Woxic, former number 2 team in the world AWPA, Kassad, regarded as one of the best coaches in the space. And as it was getting put together, I mean, the only bit that I would say that was kind of, a question mark was maybe the Esatag signing, because while he'd been really good over at Astralis, it was in the online era. He'd played like 36 maps. People maybe felt his ascension was a little bit premature. But in general, I mean, I looked at that team and felt it had a lot of potential. And the reaction from the community, where they were so hostile so quickly, it even took me by surprise, frankly.
It was interesting, for sure. I didn't expect it to be perfect, to be honest. I know that there was a lot of expectation on us. And obviously, as I said, Henry had done a good job of hyping the whole thing up. But like, if you look at any international project that came before us, no one was performing after 6 months. Like Complexity were losing in minor qualifiers and first rounds of Snow Sweet Snow at that time of their careers, like as a team. So it was weird, and I felt like we were making steady progress. Like, obviously, if you go just before the player break, I think it was, with when we still had Woxic in the team, we'd just come off of a Blast full qualifier where we'd lost to Mouse Sports. In the last match to qualify for Blast finals, we'd come off a run in another tournament where we'd got to like the semis or the final. Like, we were getting better, let's put it that way. So, and then obviously we had to make the roster change and the coach change, but we were getting better. So it was kind of, I think we were judged too harshly. If you compare it to any other team that's out there, really, as a new team with players that have never played with each other before. No one's ever worked with anyone before. It was, I thought it was a bit harsh, to be honest.
One of the big narratives from the community is that you were all overpaid, and I tried to explain every time I got the chance, and I was just dismissed as being, you're Henry G's mate, so everything you say is bollocks, even though I said ostensibly Henry G, you have to say, sort of failed a bit, just by the nature of how the project ended. You know, he's one of my best friends in the whole fucking world. I've known him since he's a kid. But reality's reality. You know, it's the same. I say Moses fucked up as well. You know, like, just Yanko too. You know, love these boys. Like, we'd take a bullet for all of them. But reality's reality. You know, so I don't think I was being biased at all. But I tried to explain to people, if he'd picked up an existing 5, it's cheaper, right? When you build a team. And
depends which 5 you want, but yeah.
Yeah, sure. I mean, in general, but I mean, then you would have been like, you know, you would have had to have gone and got like a top 5, you know, and obviously I don't think anyone's doing that, because then you got buyouts and salaries, and the players are going to want an increase, and the buyout's going to be ridiculous. But it's going to be more expensive in terms of the salary you command, because the players he was picking up were essentially in free agency. It's their job to sort of like wrangle as good a deal for themselves, but not just on that. I mean, you're having to go out and get the best available talent in this particular role that is available, so you're not paying a $2 million fucking buyout or whatever nonsense is in the contract. So it was this like balancing act, and I was trying to explain he's not overpaying. Overpaying would be how much for Glaive, and Astralis go 2 million, and then Glaive goes, yeah, and I won 80 grand a month, and you go, yeah, all right then. And that would probably be about in line with what would have happened. And then you go, right, well, that's the IGL sorted. And eventually, you know, if you go down that road, you build an $8 million team, and everyone's getting paid about double the salary. That was probably the average salary within Cloud9. It probably wasn't even, actually, because of Mezii and players like that. So I was trying to explain, no one's overpaid for shit. This is the market. You just don't know what the market is, but nobody was listening. So I'll ask you straight up. I mean, when your salary was announced, and it was, what was it, like 42 or something?
It was 30,000 euros.
Right. Well, that looks like a big number, right, to a lot of people. And then people were saying, "Oh, his agent, his agent's ripped off Cloud9 or whatever." You know, talk me through people knowing how much money you've got and why you weren't overpaid, because I don't think you were.
First of all, when you join a new team and you have to build it from scratch, and you have kind of a good reputation, I would say. Like for me, coming out of Vitality, where I was in-game leader of like the number 2 team, as you said, like my stocks were high essentially.
Yeah.
If we want to put it in a market sense, and me building a new team from scratch without actually knowing which players I'm going to be playing with when I sign, because I was the first one to sign, there is a risk element to that, and you negate that risk element by paying more. And then American teams forever have always played more than European teams. It's just a fact. If you want European players to play, because we were supposed to move to America as well back then, well, then they pay you more, because it's another like kind of not risk, but you know, it's something you have to move to America, so that's something on top of what you'd normally get paid. And I think little things like that just add up to a point where you get to the number you get to, whether it be 30,000 or whatever anyone else is getting paid. So in that sense, I think you have to look at it like football. You know, Jack Grealish just signed for Manchester City for whatever, 100 million pounds, I think it was. And people are saying that they overpaid for him, but
yeah,
that's how much he's worth to Aston Villa. That's not how much he's worth as a player. That's how much he's worth to Aston Villa. And that was kind of, I think, the same for Cloud9. That's how much I was worth to them, because then they could go out and say, okay, we've got this guy as our in-game leader.
Yeah, exactly.
And potentially get better players thanks to that, the reputation that I had back then. I think that's kind of the way it works, essentially. That's why I was getting paid a lot. That's why other players got paid a lot, because people's stocks were high, and yeah, all the things I said before.
It's kind of weird how quickly things started to break down. I'll certainly say that. I want to go through in order, and I know you might be a little bit, you're a gentleman and a scholar, so you might not want to get too much into some of this. But I think, I'm trying to remember in order. So the first big shock that happened is xtqzz, it was Henry and xtqzz were going to build a team. And as you say, you were the first guy to sign on. So there was this idea that was going to be like the trifecta that brings Cloud9 back to greatness. xtqzz was out the door very quickly. And a lot of people have assumed, because xtqzz is known for being, especially if you talk to the Aussies like I do, he's known for being a bit of a, feisty guy. He's not backward about coming forward. I think he said that himself a few times publicly. He's very forthright. Some people felt there must have been a clash between you and him, either a disagreement in styles, a disagreement in how things were being communicated. What's the reality there? Because I know obviously he ended up going back to work with the players he's worked with most of his career. So it could just be he would have rather have done that, or was there something wrong?
I wouldn't say that there was necessarily anything wrong between himself and me. The statement that was released saying that there was a stylistic clash between him and me was kind of like the easy way out of the situation. Right. I'll just say that. Don't want to go into further details, but there was a few issues, just not with me, essentially, in terms of like how things were being communicated and stuff. And yeah, I don't want to go further into it, because I think he can be a good coach if he's in a team that, like the Aussies, I guess, because they're kind of the same, right? They're very outspoken and that. Whereas I think with the younger players we had in the team, maybe it wasn't necessarily the approach they needed. I think that kind of coaching style is kind of gone now, of the more aggressive style, let's put it that way. of talking to people and stuff, you know. So
yeah. Oh, I mean, it's like what they always break it down to. Obviously, it's way more complex than this when you're talking about learning styles. I've done sports coaching myself, but obviously, the very unsophisticated view is the carrot and the stick, right? And I will say in esports,
I won't take Assad was out there.
yeah, no. But, they call it the carrot or the stick. And obviously, in esports, I mean, there really isn't a lot of room for if you're more stick oriented, let's say. He goes, and then the next big one that caught everyone by surprise was Woxic. Now I know there was some mitigating circumstances, let's say, because obviously he was playing from Turkey. There was a ping issue. I know we didn't get to see the best Woxic in the online era. I obviously consider him a great LAN player because he has his aggressive style at LAN when people traditionally play more conservatively, and therefore he catches people cold and off guard. Plus, he's a very hyped up guy in general. But also, I will say I watched every single Cloud9 game, sometimes with Henry on the call, because I didn't want to miss a team I was excited by. And I'll
just bringing back memories of Henry speaking to us after the game now. Go on.
But yeah, but for me, I watched Woxic in the time he was in the team, and I saw him repeatedly make mistakes and the same mistakes, and it didn't look like he was learning series to series, match to match, tournament to tournament, whatever. I don't know if that's just my stupid, DMG eyes deceiving me, but that's what it felt like. So what's your take on it? Because obviously he was cut, and I thought it was a very nice professional statement from Cloud9 that, due to his ping and some other issues, we're going to keep him on as a streamer. But I always suspected he was in too prominent a role to make those kind of mistakes as often as he was making.
I think my take on Woxic is he's a great player, and I think he'll eventually, if it's not, I don't know if this Turkish team is a thing or not, but if it's not this team, then maybe another one. But I think he will definitely rediscover that form that maybe it is when LANs come back, because I definitely think he is a LAN player. For us, it was, I think honestly, the thing that really kind of turned my head to the Woxic situation was like, I just didn't feel like he was enjoying playing, to be perfectly honest. And I think if you're not enjoying playing, then as you said, you're not improving. And we had conversations. I took time to actually go on with him on the server and try and help him, work other things out. And I just felt like the potential was there, but he just wasn't enjoying playing maybe online, and just didn't want it enough maybe. But not to say that he's not a guy that works hard and stuff. I think it just wasn't the right circumstances for him in Cloud9, I would say. I know there was a lot of things about him being toxic after mouse sports and stuff. We never had any issues with him with that.
That was so overblown. That was, I've even talked to some of the mouse sports guys, and it was like the way it all came out in that report ahead of time. They were like, what the fuck? That was kind of weird.
So yeah, just to put it out there that Woxic is not toxic Woxic. But yeah, he honestly, I just felt like maybe the team wasn't right for him. And he just didn't, he just never really got into the groove of it, I guess. But as I said, I think he definitely has the potential to be an amazing player. And yeah, basically that was all it came down to with Woxic. And we kind of had, not an issue, but it was kind of like Ricky being alone in Serbia was definitely something that pushed us to that decision as well, because obviously we brought in Zeppa afterwards. So it kind of, I wouldn't say forced our hand on that decision, but kind of pushed towards it as well. Us thinking, okay, Woxic isn't getting any better right now for whatever reason. And we have Ricky, who has like the issue of being alone in Serbia and not enjoying his time by himself, obviously, which is a hard thing to do if it's not for you. So yeah, we kind of went that direction as well to help out Ricky, I think. Well, not I think, I'm sure, but yeah.
Well, there was a lot of people as well that came out at that time and were like, this is mismanagement because they've not picked up another AWPer, which, again, directly contradicted, man, I wish Zeppa would have a team, which was the other narrative that was running concurrently. It's so sad what happened to those Chaos guys. Oh, they picked up Zeppa. Fuck you, Cloud9. Brilliant. Yeah, loved it. But there was a problem there. I mean, Woxic is big shoes to fill, just even reputationally. But then on a technical level, you were AWPer for a bit. xtqzz had joined Cloud9 under the understanding he was going to play entry, I believe. And then you AWPed, and then now xtqzz was the AWPer, and he had to kind of learn that. So not only do you have all this pressure and all this attention, you've also got players learning new roles. Do you think that was still the right way to go?
Honestly, yeah. I think we had to help the players that we already had in the best way possible. I think that's the only way you can really go about it. And we felt like the best way we could help Ricky out was to bring a friend of his, who is also a great player. Obviously, we didn't pick him up because he's Ricky's friend before that gets headlines on Reddit or whatever. And we sort of went the direction of trying to help Ricky out by bringing in an American. They were in the same apartment building. I think even towards the end, they were both like playing in the same room in Henry's apartment in Serbia. And we were just trying our best to help Ricky. And at the same time, Patrick had AWP before in Heroic, I think it was.
Yeah, brief period, yeah.
So we decided to go with me AWPing just because I think Patrick was really good at what he was doing. And it just made sense for me to transition over to the AWP at that time. And this was before we kind of made the decision when Elmer Paddy arrived. So he kind of didn't have anything to go off of, you know, like what we were doing before. So he just kind of went with it. And then we transitioned back because we were kind of lacking maybe some aggressivity that I would bring. And yeah, that's kind of why we flip-flopped between myself and Patrick. But the main reason why we brought Zeppa in was to try and solve issues we had already. And maybe it created a new one. I feel like you can make systems work without like a top AWPer. If you think of Liquid in 2019, Nitro obviously was good on the AWP, but he wasn't like a top 5 AWPer in the world. So that was kind of the general direction we're going for. And our rifle players were really strong, like Ricky, Will, Patrick, and Eric were all honestly really, really good individually on the rifles. So we were trying to make a system work like that, basically.
Yeah, and just to wrap up the Cloud9, and we'll talk a little bit about Fnatic, and then I'll get you out of here. The way it ended, it was so typical to the project because it was so close and yet so far. When I saw the group you were in for the last competition Cloud9 played in, which was the ESL Pro League finals, I was like, oh, fuck. Can these guys get a break? Because you had Gambit in there, who were rapidly establishing themselves as the #1 team of that period of time. You had Na'Vi in there, who I felt were probably the #2 team in the world, and was a little bit, bewildered that those two teams were in the group with each other. You had Furia, the ultimate Jekyll and Hyde team. They either just blow you out the water 2-0 or they're shit and unrecognizable. Really depends on the map pool. And then obviously I'd just, been paying attention to a lot of the Brazilian teams that were on the rise. I felt fair enough. You can beat MIBR and beat Team One, but then suddenly you're looking at having to beat one of these other teams. And so your game against Na'Vi, and this is what I always put it down to, you were essentially, if you'd won overpass instead of losing in overtime against them. You 2-0 Na'Vi, and Cloud9 probably still have a team, right?
Yep.
But then, you know, you took a map off Gambit. That started out well. You obviously beat Team One. You beat Furia. And then obviously by the last day, I don't know what happened against MIBR.
Well, we lost because if
yeah.
we'd won that, we would have qualified. So
yeah, and that was the other thing. But I mean, you wouldn't have needed that.
no.
So it was so close. You lost in the MIBR game, like it was overtime, and it was an overtime in a 16-14.
Yeah, it was something really close on both maps.
Yeah, so people are like, oh, it must have been the pressure got to them or whatever. So let's just talk about that last game. I mean, there was a palpable sense if you didn't get out of the group, the team was going to get cut. It shouldn't have been that way, but the pressure seemed enormous going into that game. So is that what happened? Did the pressure get to you guys? Did you bottle it? Did you just play shit? You know, how do you end up not qualifying?
I think that was probably one of my worst in-game leading performances. To be perfectly honest, I think I actually texted my brother like 2 or 3 days before the group. I think it was. I was like, I think if we don't make it out of the group, we're gone. I felt it coming, you know. Yeah. And then when it boiled down to that, no disrespect to MIBR, but that's like one of the two teams we should have been beating, you know.
Yeah. For sure.
And when it came, we beat Fury, like we beat them 2-0, very comfortable. We've been playing really, really well. And it got to that last game and just, I don't know, it's just like we were losing all the pressure situations. I think I was making bad calls in pressure situations, which is something that I'm not used to because usually LAN finals we win. At least with Vitality, we were very good in high pressure situations, and I think my calling was good. So it was a very new kind of feeling to me to be like, oh shit, we're under pressure and I'm making bad calls. And I think the fact that I knew, like in the back of my head, that if we lost this game, we were going to be gone, and all the pressure that had been mounting through community, through management at that time, because everyone sort of felt it going south, you know. I think at some point my mind just went in that last game, and I think it's really tough because, as you said, like if we win that game, I'm probably not signing for Fnatic now. I'm probably still playing for Cloud9. So yeah, that was definitely a weird experience for me, that last game, to be honest. And I apologize to all my teammates who had to switch to Valorant because of that game.
Let's just touch upon briefly. Obviously, the announcement is made. You know, Cloud9 are cutting CS. You know, the Reddit reaction was unbelievable. I've still got all of the threads archived. I want to do like, I think eventually I'm going to go back and maybe do like, maybe I might just do my own documentary on it because the whole thing is so fucking insane to me. But, you know, let's laugh at Cloud9, fuck Cloud9, you know, all of this stuff. As somebody that's obviously felt the pressure before in the past, what was that like? You know, the vitriol was as bad as I think I've ever seen aimed at players for being cut. Probably the worst example.
I don't know. I think my mind was kind of blank in that moment. It was just like, I think I found out on the day of the announcement that we were getting cut, to be honest. So it was kind of, everything went kind of quick. Like, I think Henry spoke to me sometime like 10 or 11 in the morning. I had time to call my parents, call my brother, and talk to my girlfriend, and kind of the announcement was out. So it was just like, okay, this is happening. And I think I just wasn't on the computer for a few days, and I definitely wasn't at Reddit because what we'd gone through the 6 months period I was in the team was bad enough. So I knew what was coming afterwards. And I don't understand it because essentially look at teams moving away from CS now, and obviously our results were definitely part of that. I do feel like the community reaction to that the Cloud9 team, it was completely over the top, and I don't think teams want to get involved if that's the reaction they're going to get. Like, who would want to spend, obviously it wasn't tens of millions like people were suggesting, but
No.
a couple or a few million on a team to get insulted for 6 months and everyone posting laugh threads of Cloud9, like you said. So you spent 3 million for that, and like no one is interested in that. And so I feel like, yeah, our results weren't good, and we got removed maybe a bit early. I felt like, as I said earlier, 6 months in, I think that's still quite early for an international team. But I do think that if they never come back, it's not just because of our results. I definitely think the community has a part to play in that.
Yeah, and meanwhile, when Carrigan rejoined FaZe and they signed Twists and they were crapping out of every tournament, everyone was like, "Oh, give them time." Carrigan even did an interview going, I think I might take a year to build a team. I'm like, a fucking year? Are you serious? Crazy. Just the disparity in the reactions.
I think it's I definitely think there is part of that being down to myself and Henry as well. I think we're definitely seen as villains within the scene, I guess. Like, everyone loves to hate Henry, everyone loves to hate me for whatever reason. I remember the interview I did about when we lost to Cloud9 when I was still on to Complexity when I was still on Vitality at Blast, and I said, well, it just felt like they were running around and killing us. And the backlash I got for that. And
I remember that, yeah.
Jamie is now my coach, and I spoke to him about it, and he was like, well, yeah, that's what he's looked like when I watched the demo back as well. So it's like, obviously, like, I'm not saying it because I wasn't happy about losing, but it was a real feeling. And the fact that they, like, when they watched the demo back, they felt the same. It's just like, I just think that, yeah, people love to hate some people in life, and that's just how, like, the role that you have within the scene, I guess. Like, I will be forever not liked, and I can just play off of it, and that's fine by me.
So look, one good thing that came out of Cloud9, and this will help me segue into the Fnatic talk, is obviously Mezii, a player that when he joined, people were like, this is Henry and his UK bias. A lot of people hadn't seen the type of numbers he was putting up in MDL prior to that, where it was very clear he was too good for that level of play, and was a really good prospect. Then, he joined. And in terms of value to the org, I mean, I think he was you could make an argument he was the best signing. And obviously, just in terms of his level of performance and what he did, I think he surprised a lot of people. And obviously now, you're playing with him again in Fnatic. So I'm guessing that there was a strong relationship there. And so I wanted to get your thoughts about him as a player.
Yeah, Will is, I think, one of the best talents we have in CS, to be perfectly honest. He's got the same kind of mindset as Zywoo is the best example I have of not caring. He'll do anything and do it at a very high level. Obviously, I think when he joined Cloud9, no one knew anything about him, which is fair. He wasn't playing in any like tier 1 competitions. But I think he is definitely the one that learned the most whilst in Cloud9, whether it be from myself or Patrick, or well, I guess myself and Patrick were the most experienced players. And I spent hours after practice with him. We would talk about things, we would like discuss things, and he's like takes everything on board and just learns from it. And whilst he's learning, his level doesn't drop, if that makes sense. Some people, like, whilst they're learning, their level kind of drops and then it gets back once they've assimilated things, and he just learns everything straight away, and he remembers everything. So he'll remember every grenade, he'll remember any situation he's already been in, and makes like really good decisions because he can remember like past experiences in similar situations. And honestly, he is about, I reckon he has the same potential as Burnout,
Right.
in the sense that it's just Burnout is further in his development. and Will, I think, can reach that level as well. And Brian, obviously, being, I can't remember where he was in HL2 rankings last year, but he's definitely one of the best players there is in Counter-Strike. I think, yeah, Will definitely has that potential as well.
So joining Fnatic, you and Mezii, but obviously we'll focus on you since it's you're here. It's obviously a great name, a huge brand, especially in CS, but across all of esports. And it is something of the term that gets used in sports is obviously a fallen giant when a team finds themselves incredibly, underperforming. And Fnatic have been on this downturn like almost nothing I've seen before in CSGO. I think at the time, the first announcement about you potentially joining was put out there. It was, they were 60th in the world, which is insane to even think of for a team like Fnatic. So you find yourself in a situation where, again, you're taking over a team that's below expectations for the talent on the roster, and you're the leader and you're the one that has to drag them up. Are you a little bit intimidated at the prospect?
Honestly, no, because I wasn't intimidated when I joined Vitality and took over in-game leading from MBK and leading these people that won multiple majors. So I don't think I get intimidated by these things. It's definitely a huge honor for me. I started watching esports, watching Call of Duty 4, and I think one of the first teams I was watching was Fnatic with what was his name? Stevie, the sniper, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was watching them back then, and that was when I was 12, the kid in front of the computer. So so it's a huge.
I was out in the trenches covering that, so you've just made me feel fucking old.
I was watching all your interviews on CADRED later, a few years after that. So
Jesus,
I've been watching you for years.
Fucking hell.
But yeah, no, honestly, I feel like it's a massive challenge. I did think twice about it, to be honest, because after what we'd gone through with Cloud9 just recently, I knew how hard it is to build an international roster. And what really swayed me is that how good Fnatic were at listening, I guess. And essentially the Mezii thing didn't come from me, it came from them. I told them what experience I'd had with Cloud9, bringing 4 different nationalities together and 5 CS cultures, because I was playing in the French scene, was super hard, because you have to try and understand how everyone's thinking and get everyone on the same page, and them listening to that and thinking, okay, well, you've played with Mezii, obviously got on well. We've got our 3 guys, so it's not like a huge international roster. It's 2 styles instead of 5 that we need to work out and mix together. And the cultures weren't too dissimilar. UK, Sweden is all right, whereas for going back to the Cassard example, where they're a bit more fiery up in Eastern Europe, it just made a lot of sense the way the team was being put together. And I think Fnatic have a track record of sticking with players and teams and helping them go as far as they possibly can before making a change. Was also a good kind of push for me to say, okay, I will have the time to build this team, and hopefully get the org back up to where they deserve.
Yeah. What are you most looking forward to? Because obviously there's a lot of tantalizing prospects. You've got the development of young talent, Chiquinho, Mezii, Brolan. You've got playing with a veteran like Crims, an absolute legend, future Hall of Famer. So what is it you're most looking forward to about the Fnatic project?
It's hard to tell, because obviously we started a lot earlier than a lot of teams. We've been practicing for a few weeks now, a couple of weeks, 2.5 weeks now. And honestly, it's just been really good, to be honest. Some of these veterans could be stuck in their ideas, and they've won tournaments doing these things or this style, and Freddie is just very open and just a good laugh, honestly, which I didn't expect, because when you look at him from the outside, he looks like a biker who, if you cross up the wrong alley, he'll have you against the wall. And so that was the best surprise, I think, And Burnout, honestly, Burnout, I don't think I've seen too many players on an individual level who are as good as what I've seen from him so far. And obviously I've played against him. So that's been like a very good surprise. Well, not surprise because I already knew, but but I think for me the best thing I guess I could say is to help Will continue to develop, because I think we worked well together in Cloud9, and I think as I said, I think he's a super talent, and I want to help him get to where I think he can get, and I think that's the most exciting prospect for me. And obviously being part of Fnatic is also extremely exciting, and hopefully we can get to a point where we can challenge for titles and win some.
And obviously we've got the prospect of getting Fnatic back in the mix. Assuming the major still goes ahead and everything, it's all up in the air. It looks like an event will be going on. I mean, have you talked about targets yet? I know it's early days, but what are the expectations? I dread to think what the community's expectations are going to be, but what are yours?
Well, funnily enough, we're Monday today, and we have a meeting tomorrow about setting our targets. So,
all right,
we haven't got them set yet, but it's definitely. Let's just say I don't think the first statement will be that we'll be winning EPL like we were supposed to be winning Flashpoint with Cloud9. My personal expectations, well, not expectations, but what I want to achieve is, as I said, I want to help the younger players develop. All of them have a lot of potential and a lot of talent, including Jack. I know a lot of people have been quite skeptical about him, but honestly, the potential is there, and I think he was in a kind of awkward situation maybe before. Obviously, I wasn't part of the team, but coming in and taking the sniper away from JW, who's still in the team, who is like an absolute legend, especially in the Swedish scene, and for everyone, to be honest. I think may have been a bit of a weird situation for him, but the potential is there, and I look forward to helping him and get back to all the big tournaments and hopefully win some.
Well, that now brings us up. We've done it. We've finally done the thing we've been threatening to do to one another for years. You've come on a show. I've done a show with you. Thanks so much. It's been very illuminating and informative for me. I probably could have just reached out and asked you, honestly, but I'm a busy guy, and you're a busy guy as well. So look, any final thoughts? Anything you don't think I've covered that you'd like to say?
I mean, no. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Fnatic, for the opportunity, obviously. And even if you don't love me, I love you, community. What can I say?
There you go. Thanks so much. So there you have it. There's Alex, new in-game leader of Fnatic. We're going to be following their progress with a lot of interest. And for anyone that wanted to get the inside track and what was happening at Cloud9, I hope that's answered some of your questions. As always, there'll be another episode of this coming along in the distant, maybe not too distant future. I think I've recorded a bunch of these. We're just editing them, so I don't know which order they're going to go out in. But make sure you tune in for the next one. Till then, take care of yourself.